Hello children, welcome to the digital class. I hope you are all doing well. I think you are all excited to learn something new concepts in geometry. Let us start the session. So before we start our session, let us try to recap what we have learned in our previous session. Look at this wall clock. Wow, an aeroplane is flying. Here is a laptop, and you can see a door over there, a scissor. Notice that the highlighted portions form an angle using straight lines or line segments. So these are some of the applications of lines and angle in our daily life. Look at the angle shown on your screen. There is another angle, POQ. Children, can you identify the types of angles that are shown on your screen? Yes, the first one is an acute angle. Now look at the second one. It's an obtuse angle, because the first angle is more than 0 but less than 90 degrees. So we call it as an acute angle. Whereas in the second case, we see that the measure of this angle is more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. So we call it as an obtuse angle. Look at this image shown on the screen, dear children. Can you identify what is this? Yes, it's a railway track which is mostly seen in the railway junctions. Look at the highlighted portions here. Here, a pair of angles are formed using these line segments. So children, do you know what are the different pairs of angles? Today we are going to learn about these pairs of angles in this session. So our topic is about lines and angles. So dear children, at the end of this session you will learn different pairs of angles, define transversal, angles made by the transversal, and finally you will learn about parallel lines also. So let's start our session about pair of angles. Look at the angle shown on your screen. Yes, the measure of this angle is 35 degrees. Now let's see another angle. Here the measure of this angle is 55 degrees. Let us find the sum of these two angles, that is 35 degrees plus 55 degrees is equal to 90 degrees. Such type of angles are called complementary angles. Hence, we can conclude that if the sum of two angles is 90 degrees, then the angles are called complementary angles. Next, we will learn another pair of angles. Let us take another example. Here, the measure of angle is 42 degrees and the measure of another angle is 38 degrees. Let's add them. What do you get now? Yes, it is 80 degrees. So children, here we have seen that the sum of two angles is not 90 degrees. So these angles are not complementary angles. In the previous slide we have seen only if the sum of angles is 90, then only they are called complementary angles. Now let's learn another pair of angles. Consider the angle shown on your screen. Yes, here it is 45 degrees. Now consider another angle. The measure of this angle is 135 degrees. Now again let us find the sum of these angles, that is 45 degrees plus 135 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. Now such pair of angles are called as supplementary angles. So children, we can define the supplementary angles as if the sum of two angles is 180 degrees, then the angles are called supplementary angles. So children, let us learn another example to check whether the given angles are supplementary or not. Here the first angle is 60 degrees, whereas the measure of the second angle is 128 degrees. Let's find their sum. We notice that 60 degrees plus 128 degrees is 188 degrees. So children, does this pair form a supplementary angle? No, because we have already learnt in the previous slide that the sum of two angles is 180 degrees, then only it is supplementary angles. But here it is not 180, so they are not supplementary angles. So children, now that you have learnt about complementary and supplementary angles, look at the pair of angles shown on your screen. Here these angles are formed by ray OA, ray OB and ray OC. Notice that this ray OC is the common arm, and also we see that point O is the common point for all these rays. I can say this point is common vertex. So it has two angles, that is angle AOB and angle BOC. These two angles have a common arm OC and a common vertex O. Such pairs of angles are called as adjacent angles. That is, the angles having a common arm and a common vertex are called as adjacent angles. Now children, can you tell what are the angles, adjacent angles shown on your screen now? Yes, it is angle AOC and angle COB. These two are called adjacent angles. Now take a look at this figure shown on your screen. Dear children, can you identify the adjacent angles shown on your screen? Let's see. Here angle AOD and angle DOC form a pair of adjacent angles. Similarly, if you notice, angle DOC and angle COB form another pair of adjacent angles. So likewise, you can find some other pairs of adjacent angles also. Now let us consider a pair of adjacent angles as shown on your screen. Here angle POR and ROQ are adjacent angles. Now let us measure these angles using the protractor. Children, can you notice what is the measure of these two angles? Here angle POR is 65 degrees, whereas measure of angle ROQ is 115 degrees. So ROQ or QR both are same. Okay. Now let us add these angles as shown in the figure. So here angle POR plus QR is equal to 65 plus 115, and adding these two you get 180 degrees. So such pair of angles are called linear pair. So children, here angle POR and ROQ are called linear pair. I hope you understood the difference between the linear pair and supplementary angles. So supplementary angles are two individual angles, whereas here linear pair should be adjacent angles only. Okay children. So a pair of adjacent angles whose sum is a straight angle or 180 degrees is called a linear pair. Let us see the image shown on your screen. It shows a crossroads, and these crossroads, if they represent two lines, there are four angles formed here. Now these two are opposite angles. Similarly, these blue colored marked angles are also opposite angles. Such type of angles are called vertically opposite angles. Now let us consider these vertically opposite angles shown on your screen. So here AOD and angle BOC are vertically opposite angles. Similarly, angle DOB and AOC are another pair of vertically opposite angles. Now let's measure these angles using a protractor. On measuring, you see that angle DOB is 120 degrees. Now let's measure angle AOC. Again, if you notice, this angle is also equal to 120 degrees. Similarly, on measuring angles AOD and BOC, you notice that both are equal to 60 degrees. So hence children, what can you write? Angle AOC and angle BOD both are equal, and also angle AOD and angle BOC are equal. Hence, we conclude that vertically opposite angles are always equal. Now take a look at this image shown on your screen, children. What is that? Yes, it's a railway track. Now let us draw lines as shown on your screen. Now I will take this log of wood as another line, any one of these as another line, and I will represent it with a straight line. Now dear children, how the figure looks? Yes, it looks exactly as shown on your screen. Now let us mark these lines as L, M and N. N is a line which is intersecting these two lines L and M at two distinct points. Here you can notice with red mark, these are two distinct or different points. Okay. Now take a look at another example where we have lines P, Q and R. These three are intersected by another line S at three different points. So a line which intersects two or more lines at distinct points is called a transversal. Now children, take a look at this image shown on your screen. Now here notice that all these three lines passes through a common point or same point O. In such cases, there won't be any transversal, but you might have learnt in your lower classes that such lines are called concurrent lines. So children, you have learnt about a transversal. Now let us learn the angles made by this transversal on these lines. Let's see. How many transversals can be drawn for two distinct lines? Infinite number of transversals can be drawn for two distinct lines. So let's see angles made by the transversal. We consider the same example, that is L and M are two lines and N is a transversal. And how many angles are formed here? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So children, notice that this transversal, when it intersects two lines, there are 8 angles formed. Now let us try to find what are the different types of angles made by them. Notice that here angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, angle 6, they are in between the lines L and M. That means they are inside these lines. Such type of angles are called interior angles. Now take a look at these angles, dear children. Angle 1, angle 2, angle 7 and angle 8. How these angles are? They are just outside this line L and outside this line M. Such type of angles are called as exterior angles. So we have 4 interior angles and 4 exterior angles. Now let us look at these angles 1 and 5, then 2 and 6. Similarly, 3 and 7, 4 and 8. Such pairs of angles are called corresponding angles. Now let us learn about another pair of angles. Notice angles 3 and 5, 4 and 6. these two pair of angles are called alternate interior angles. Dear children, also notice that these alternate angles will be on either side of the transversal. See, 4 and 6, they are on either side. Similarly, 3 and 5, they are on either side of this transversal end. Next, look at these angles 1 and 7. Also, 2 and 8. These angles are also on the either side of the transversal, but they are exterior angles, right? So, these angles are called alternate exterior angles. So, dear children, altogether how many alternate angles we have? We have 4 pairs of alternate angles, of which 2 are alternate interior angles and 2 pairs are alternate exterior angles. Now, let us see about another type of angles, angle 4 and angle 5, also angle 3 and angle 6. If you notice 4 and 5, they are on the same side of this transversal. Similarly, if you notice 3 and 6, they are on the same side of the transversal. Such angles are called interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So, children, till now we have seen the different types of or the pairs of angles which are formed by the transversal when it intersects two lines. Now, let us learn one more interesting and most important topic in geometry, that is parallel lines. Let us see. Look at this beautiful window, a building and a book from a school library. Let us draw 2 pairs of lines as shown on your screen. What do you notice, children? Yes, these pairs of lines are not touching, or I can say they are not intersecting one another. Such pair of lines are called parallel lines. The angles made by these transversal on parallel lines. Here line L and M are parallel to each other and N is the transversal. So, children, we have seen already about these angles 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 7, finally 4 and 8. What type of angles are these? Yes, they are corresponding angles. On measuring these two angles, angle 1 and angle 5, you will notice that these two angles are equal. Now, let us measure angle 2 and angle 6. You notice that angle 2 and angle 6 are also equal. Similarly, on measuring angles 3 and 7 are equal. Also, on measuring angle 4 and angle 8, we see that both the angles are equal. So, children, what do you conclude now? Yes, if two lines are parallel, then their corresponding angles are equal. Now, let us see about their alternate interior angles. Here, angle 3 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles. On measuring them, also angle 4 and angle 6 are alternating interior angles. On measuring them, you will notice that angle 3 is equal to angle 5 and angle 4 is equal to angle 6. So, we conclude that whenever two lines are parallel, then alternate exterior angles 1 and 7, we see that angle 1 is equal to angle 7. Similarly, on measuring alternate exterior angles 2 and 8, we see that angle 2 and angle 8 are equal. So, we conclude if two lines are parallel, then their alternate exterior angles are also equal. Now, take a look at the interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So, if you measure and add these two angles, that is 3 and 6, we see that angle 3 plus angle 6 is equal to 180 degrees. Similarly, measuring angles 4 and 5, we get their sum as 180 degrees. Hence, we conclude that if two angles are parallel, then the angles on the same side of the transversal are supplementary. Now, another important point to note down, children. Whenever two lines are there, say L and M, and P is a transversal, and if at all we want to prove these lines L and M as parallel, then we need to prove any one of these following conditions. That is, a pair of corresponding angles are equal, or a pair of alternate angles are equal, or the sum of interior angles on the same side of the transversal are supplementary. So children, till now we have learnt the concepts based on transversal and the pair of angles formed by this transversal in parallel lines also. I hope you have understood the concepts very much clearly. Now let us apply these concepts in solving some problems. Let us start with our first problem. Now two angles are complementary to each other and are equal. Find the angles. Let's start with the solution. Let the two equal angles be x each, and also given that these two equal angles are complementary. Children, can you just recollect what are complementary angles? Yes, if the sum of two angles is 90 degrees, then they are called complementary angles. So here we'll add x and x so that we get 90 degrees. On adding x and x, we get 2x equal to 90 degrees. So what is x equal to then? Yes, 90 degrees by 2. On cancellation with 2, we get 45 degrees. So children, what are the complementary angles then? Yes, the two equal angles are 45 degrees each. Let us see our next problem. The difference of two complementary angles is 20 degrees. Find the angles. Let us start with the solution. Let the two angles be x and x plus 20 degrees. Since the difference between the two angles is 20 degrees, we have taken the two angles as x and x plus 20, because on subtracting these two angles we get 20. And also it is given that the angles are supplementary. So children, can you tell what are supplementary angles? Yes, if the sum of two angles is 180 degrees, then these angles are called as supplementary angles. Now let's add these two angles now. X plus 20 is 180 degrees. So x plus x is 2x, so we get 2x plus 20 degrees equal to 180 degrees. Now we'll send this 20 to right hand side. What do you get? 2x is 180 minus 20 degrees, which is 160. Now what is the value of x then? Yes, 160 by 2. Now cancelling with 2, we get 80 degrees. Now what is the value of x plus 20, children? Yes, x is 80 plus 20, we get 100 degrees. Therefore, I can say the two supplementary angles are 80 degrees and 100 degrees. And children, notice that here the difference between these two angles is 20, result of our solution. Now let us move on to our next problem. Find the value of x in the given figure. So here a pair of adjacent angles are given. We need to find the value of x. Let's start with the solution. From the figure, angle AOC is 2x plus 40 degrees, whereas angle BOC is 3x minus 60 degrees. Now if we add AOC and BOC, we get 180 degrees. Why? Because these two adjacent angles form a linear pair, as AOB is a straight line. Okay children? So substitute the values of AOC and BOC. So we get 2x plus 40 degrees plus 3x minus 60 degrees equal to 180 degrees. On adding them, we get 2x plus 3x as 5x, 40 minus 60 as 20 equal to 180 degrees. Now let us send this minus 20 to right hand side. So what do we get, children? Yes, 5x is 180 plus 20. So on adding 180 and 20, what do we get? Yes, 5x is 200 degrees. So the value of x is given by 200 by 5. Now cancelling with 5, we get x is equal to 40 degrees. Therefore, I can say the value of x is 40 degrees. I hope you understood the problem very much clearly. Let us move on to our next problem. Now in the given figure, L and M are intersected by the transversal P is L parallel to M. Let's start with the solution. So from the figure, what is given to us? Yes, angle DAQ is 75 degrees. And we have CBS, that is angle CBS equal to 105 degrees. Notice that angle DAQ and angle PAB are equal, that is these two angles are equal. Why? Because they form vertically opposite angles. So since DAQ is 75 degrees, we get PAB is also 75 degrees. Even angle ABR and angle CBS are equal because they also form vertically opposite angles. Hence, the value of angle ABR is 105 degrees as angle CBS is also 105 degrees. Now let us add these two angles, that is angle ABR and angle PAB. Angle ABR and angle PAB. Now these two angles are angles in the same side of the transversal. Now that is 75 degrees plus 105 degrees. We get 180 degrees. So children, we got sum of interior angles on the same side of the transversal are supplementary, which means I can say these two lines L and M are parallel to each other. If the sum of two angles is 90 degrees, then the angles are called complementary angles. If the sum of two angles is 180 degrees, then the angles are called supplementary angles. The angles formed on both sides of a common arm and a common vertex are adjacent angles. A pair of angles that are adjacent and supplementary form a linear pair. When two lines intersect each other at a point, the angles formed opposite to each other are called vertically opposite angles. A line which intersects two or more lines at distinct points is called a transversal to the line. Now when a transversal intersects a pair of parallel lines, then each pair of corresponding angles are equal, each pair of alternate angles are equal, each pair of alternate exterior angles are equal, each pair of alternate interior angles are equal, each pair of interior angles on the same side of the transversal are supplementary. So children, till now we have learnt the concepts and also some problems based on these concepts. In the given figure, L parallel to M and P is a transversal. If angle A is 105 degrees, then find all other angles. The value of A, B and C without actually measuring them. Find the values of A, B and C without actually measuring them. Two angles are complementary to each other. If one angle is twice the other, then find the angles. Finally, two angles are supplementary. If one angle is 50 degrees less than the other angle, find the two angles. So children, with this, we'll come to the end of our session. I hope you might have learnt all the concepts clearly and also understood solving the problems based on these concepts. Goodbye and take care.